Hey everyone, Skillian Blitz here with my first video of Counter-Strike Global Offensive. Since it's a brand new shooter that came out, I'd figure I would give it some coverage and give it a try. It's actually not my first time playing Global Offensive. I was in the beta, although I was back when there were still a bunch of issues with netcode and weapon recoil and things like that. I've heard that it's been tightened up since then, but I don't know that for myself for sure, so I am going to go ahead and give it a try. Just playing some gun game. I actually do have a lot of background with Counter-Strike. Counter-Strike was my first online multiplayer shooter. I actually started playing it back in patch 1.1 when Dust 2, which is now probably the most popular map, well, not probably, it definitely is, originally came out. And this is back when the M4 still had the scope on it, and grenades did a reasonable amount of damage instead of basically tickling you. But I was pretty young at that point, so I can't say that I remember everything that went on. But I was a pretty big Counter-Strike competitive player back in 1.5 and 1.6. 1.6 is when Steam originally came out. I was playing that and Day of Defeat. Day of Defeat and Counter-Strike, since both have gotten Source versions, CS Source and Day of Defeat Source. Day of Defeat Source was just okay. Counter-Strike Source, though, was different than 1.6, but it was still pretty well received. And as far as number of players per game, Counter-Strike 1.6 and Counter-Strike Source, you'll still find them on the Steam top 10 and top 5 most played list. Pretty much anytime you look on there, unless some other new big game comes out or something like that. I actually probably played more of Counter-Strike Source than I did of 1.6. I'd say it's probably close. Source just lasted a whole lot longer for me because I had already known the game. It was a new thing that came out. You got it free with Half-Life 2. It came right in the box. So I went ahead and loaded it up and gave it a try. And it turns out I really liked it. I played a ton of that. I still have it installed, as a matter of fact. And, every once in a while I'll jump in. I'm not any good at it anymore, but maybe I can change that here in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. The one thing that I will say about Go is that while you can still tell it's Counter-Strike, from last I played, it's very, very different. It seems the same to people who have only lightly played Source and maybe played 1.6. The way that you shoot is kind of the same. The movement feels the same. Obviously, the maps are the same. We've been playing the same maps for about 12 years now. But they're good maps for the most part, so nothing wrong with that. But it's different. You can tell the recoil's different. Some of the movement's different. There are new guns. There's no MP5 anymore, which was always really popular. But some things never change, and that's the M4 and the AK are probably still going to be the most used weapons behind the AWP, or the AWP, which is a one-hit kill sniper rifle. And I must say that maybe it's just me, but the AWP seems like it's a lot easier to use in Go than any of the previous Counter-Strike games before. As far as the game overall itself, by the time this video's out, I've had, a pretty good amount of playing time with it, probably about 12 hours or so, including the beta. And I gotta say, it's got some issues. Most of them relating to the netcode, and maybe it's just me, but it seems like body shots in this game do not do any damage, and it seems like overall gun damage has been just lowered extremely, extremely low. It's very noticeable with the pistols, it's very, very noticeable with the SMGs, and it's even noticeable to a smaller extent with the assault rifles, because if you're not getting those headshots, you're not going to be doing hardly anything at all. Not that that is a bad thing necessarily, because it does encourage you to go for those headshots, as you should be, but not everybody's not everybody's a pro. The point of Go is to kind of introduce more people into Counter-Strike, and it seems like they're really punishing people who are not really good right off the bat, because even though Global Offensive and Source and 1.6 are different, they're similar enough that if you were really good at 1.6 or Source, you're going to be good at Go, and skill difference, as what I've seen so far, between people who are obviously new and people who have obviously been playing for a while is absolutely massive. You know, playing this game reminds me why a lot of Source servers had the op disabled. You know, but people have been crying about the op for, 10 years now. It's not going to change anytime soon. But, I gotta say that sometimes it really feels like they're justified in what they're saying, and especially, the sniper rifles feel really powerful in this game. The auto snipers have always been powerful. They're kind of seen as the big time noob weapons, but they seem even better in this game from what I've seen. And a lot of the newer guns are just really not any good. The MP9 and the MP7 and the Bison and the new shotguns, they all just seem like they're just crap because they don't rely on headshots. They just rely on those body shots. And if you're not getting those headshots, you're not going to be doing hardly any damage at all. Again, you should be going for the headshots, trying to do the best that you can, but not everybody's pro, so I just feel like just bullet damage in general is just really, really low. My other issue is with the bullet detection or netcode or whatever you want to call it. A lot of people complained about this type of thing when CS Source first came out because it used like client-side hit detection and all this other stuff that you can Google and go into that I'm not going to completely cover in this. In this game, a lot of the time it'll feel like if you're having a firefight with somebody, you'll put a bunch of bullets into them and get like the blood markers and everything, and then you look at the console to see how much damage you did, and you realize, oh wait, I only hit the guy one time, even though the game showed me obviously hitting him a lot. And there's a few clips in the first part of this video where you can definitely see, like when I'm using the FAMAS or some of the SMGs, where I will just unload into a guy and the tracers will show it like obviously hitting him, and nothing happens. So I'm not sure if that's a netcode issue or if that's like the recoil doesn't exactly follow where the tracers go or something like that. But that's something that has absolutely got to be fixed if Valve expects anybody to play this competitively. As far as sales go, it's certainly not going to compete with your Call of Duties or your Battlefields or anything like that. As far as the actual gameplay goes, I would think they've had long enough to get this stuff tightened up. It still uses the Source engine, which is still based off of, the Gold Source, which is the Half-Life 1 engine. So, the hit code has had plenty of time to develop and mature, and I'm just really confused as to why this isn't something that's just been ironed out by now. As far as positive things about the game, there's a lot to say. The character models and the gun models and the maps look really good. It's not like super DirectX 11 high-tech, Battlefield graphics or anything like that. But for what the game is, it definitely gets the job done and looks pretty good. Even people with older PCs will be able to max this out pretty easily. My PC is pretty okay. I run everything maxed out, 8 times or 4 times anti-aliasing or, whatever. But, it's not the best looking game in the world, but for what it is, it looks okay. Weapon recoil, now that they have gone through the beta and had a chance to patch it and listen to community feedback, seems a lot better. It's still not that great, but it does okay, which I have to give them props for, because it was just a nightmare to try to shoot some of these guns like the AK or the M4. Not that the recoil was like too high or anything like that. It just didn't feel very good to shoot them. It felt like it was missing a lot, like the recoil didn't seem like it was equaling where you were shooting at. And, it just kind of seemed like it was just kind of a crapshoot every time you pulled the trigger. Thankfully, that's been tightened up a little bit, but because the tracers and the bullet damage is so low, sometimes it just feels like you're not hitting a guy, and sometimes you actually aren't. So, it's still something they have to work out. The matchmaking system is basically non-existent as far as like matching to skill goes, but the lobby system is actually pretty cool. It does work. It puts you on the same server, puts you on the same team. You can search for the different game modes. So overall, I would say that CS:GO, as like a few day review, if you want to call it that, I would say it is okay. If I had to give it a number score, which I don't typically like doing, I would say probably a 6 or 7 out of 10. Really not the biggest fan of Counter-Strike games anymore. They've had a lot of time to mature. The people who like them are going to stick with them. Obviously, I didn't stick with them because I stopped playing it competitively in about 2003. But, as far as the games themselves go as a whole, I would say, they're really niche titles now. I don't think a lot of people are going to really pick up Go and be like, yeah, this is the game I want to play. Because it's hard. It's a real difficult game to play. And the people who are really good at it are going to keep being really good at it, and new players are just going to get turned away because they just get killed so often. And because of the nature of the game, being if you die, you have to wait to respawn, it's just going to turn new people away and make them not want to keep playing anymore. So we'll have to see what happens, the longevity of it. I'll be posting more videos. So as always, if you have any comments or questions, or you just like to leave some criticism or praise, go ahead and drop a comment in the box below, and stay tuned for more videos from Blitz Gaming. Thanks for watching, guys.